money get paper. Cause you know we party hard later. Mr. Flex and Papa got the old city lock with the girls in each and every area. Stepping NLC with no chaser.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, depending on where in the world you are joining me from. I am Alluminati, and this is the Crypto and Cognac podcast show, as always, powered by Alti.com, the one-click crypto wallet for WhatsApp, Telegram, and Discord. And as always, fueled by my friends at Hennessy TT. Today, I'm having some Hennessy VSOP, and I'm super excited for the conversation that we are about to get into, featuring two people who are no strangers to the podcast, but coming to you with big news. We have Miss Anya, Ayoung-Chee, designer, mother, philanthropist, Project Runway winner, former Miss Trinidad and Tobago. We have Mr. Stephen Hadeed, Jr., actor, model, co-founder, founder of Creator Labs 3D, two amazing people talking to us today about the Metaverse Fashion Week and their involvement with it. So Anya, Stephen, welcome back to the podcast. How are you guys doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having us on this very exciting day.
Yeah, I mean, it's the 24th of March, 2022, the very first day of the inaugural Metaverse Fashion Week hosted by Decentraland. And how far have we come in the Metaverse in a short space of time?
That's
Absolutely.
True. That is definitely true. Good to be back, Al. Always good to be on the show.
Always good to have you. So we're going to jump right in because I feel like we have so much to talk about and so little time, right? We're talking about Metaverse Fashion Week, yes, but more so we're talking about Wildflower and that particular project. So Anya, lead us off with Wildflower. Tell us where this idea came from, how it evolved into a clothing line, a collection rather, and how it evolved into the virtual digital world. And then Stephen could probably support that process.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the first thing I'll say is, like everything else in this space, it has been a truly collaborative ideation, not just execution. And everybody talks about collaboration, but it started from the inception of how it came to be this version of a brand, between Stephen and Steph at Creator Labs and Mark and Ariane at Z Labs and a variety of other players around us. It has been a process for me to completely let down my guard as a founder of this brand that was previously a traditional clothing line, and allow all this expertise to kind of like soak in and recognize like, okay, I don't know anything about this stuff, but I trust it, and I trust these people and I trust the vision that they're, seeing for the brand. And the only thing I could credit myself with is trusting them and just going for the ride, because it really has been a collective process. Like I said, just even from the beginning of how does Wildflower become a Web3 brand? How does it become a fashion innovation company versus a clothing line, But I mean, just in terms of the practicality, like when COVID happened, we had just launched the brand in New York for regular fashion week, in New York. And 6 weeks later, we were locked down. And so we had a choice, and the choice was don't sell any clothes and just shut down, and we were a small brand and we just launched. But there was just this thing in me that was like, well, I don't like to give up, first of all. And I had this intern who was working from LA at the time. So even though we were remote, she kept sharing stuff with me. And she was already designing filters and, like skins, I guess, for her avatar in whatever world she was playing in. And it just like something sparked, and it took a year until Stephen and I spoke. And Stephen was like, well, we're already like, really advanced in this space. And I was like, oh my God, like we have to try, and Stephen was like, we have to try. And that's, here we are a year later, actually doing it, actually a brand, the first Caribbean brand in the metaverse. Like, I can't believe we can say that, you know? It's really amazing. But I'd love for Stephen to share his side of the story and how we got here together.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was pretty spot on from us first talking a year ago. And the whole space was kind of like there were things that were people, articles were being put out, as Anya said. People have been experimenting with AR filters and different things like on with Instagram and I mean, I'm still Snapchat. I've never been on Snapchat, but I know Snapchat is famous. But I know that those things have been kind of out for a while, and of course, we've been involved in the metaverse through like Decentraland for the last 2 years plus.
Right.
We got to play around in the launch, and at the time it was not much. It was you could kind of play some games and interact with some people. But now fast forward to this, where we started Creator Labs and we started with 3D renders, and then Anya put a message in a group we were in, a Caribbean NFT group that I believe is the name, and she put a message. She's like, is anybody doing anything? I can't remember the exact message. She said, would love to do something like this. And so I reached out. I was like, and of course I've known Anya for a long time. And I said, Anya, we kind of doing these things. So, I mean, we could probably do exactly what you're thinking, and the sky's the limit. And we've been working on different pieces. We worked on one piece back then, and it was kind of like a test piece. We were like, look, let's just see if this even makes sense and how well we can make it. Because it is rather intricate pieces when you look at some first stuff with the sequins and the diamantes and stuff like that. And of course embroideries and all that. So we did the first piece, and it came out, and she loved it. Anya could probably comment on that, but we showed some people, they all loved it, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. We obviously onto something here, both through the brand of Wildflower and obviously the work that we're doing with the renders and the wearables. So then we took it to the Decentraland and we started building it at Decentraland, and we realized, okay, this was working as well. So it was all just kind of positives. Obviously, we hit a million obstacles and a million roadblocks, as I think any production will do. But fast forward to here now, the beginning of Metaverse Fashion Week. And, it's the first Caribbean brand in the Metaverse. Can be bought and sold, traded, worn, enjoyed, shown off, and just like you would in real life. And we're just happy to be part of it. So it's been a cool journey. That's for sure.
All right. So I have a question, right? So last year, 1 year ago, everyone was now getting into the whole idea of NFTs, and people and even 1 year later, people are still now getting into it. Tons of people are hitting me up like, how do I get involved? And people are now getting involved from the perspective of, okay, I want to do a still picture as an NFT, right? But a year ago, you guys were contemplating, okay, how do we make things move, and how do we create experiences where people can celebrate and represent themselves in the metaverse as they would in real life, or maybe even a more true representation of themselves than they're able to do in real life. So what was it that you guys saw that made you think, okay, even further ahead than even people are now, especially not having had somebody coming from the region who had done it before?
I'm going to let Anya talk first.
Well, okay, you said something that really, I think, nails where this comes from in us as a people about being able to celebrate in this new space. And I think we celebrate very naturally. I think we have a playfulness about us as a culture. And I think that means that there's not so much of a gap in our envisioning of what it looks like to do that in a virtual world, And that's so much about what spaces like Decentraland are. Like we lined the other day, Stephen and Steph did a walkthrough for our Wildflower Wallets and Wine, and it just was like that. I mean, it was like 4 of us like standing in a space, like dancing, it didn't take a lot of effort, to stretch your mind into that way of doing things. So I think for me as a designer, it's always a struggle to manifest what you have in your head into real life, and as carnival designers, well, some people are better at it than others, but it's very costly. You have to fly to New York, get the materials, come back, prototype over and over, plenty wastage, lots of time, lots of money, Whereas this gave us room to really ideate kind of with the fullness of imagination. So it's not only that it's like easy for us as individuals to imagine this playful new world, where, like you said, you can represent yourself in any way you want. You know, there's a whole spectrum of how we're going to have new identities in the metaverse. But there's also, as from the creative perspective, this freedom, you know, to just kind of like express ourselves in a whole new way, from a design perspective, but also just, I think Wildflower in particular is all about freedom. So all of these things just made a lot of sense. And to be honest with you, part of why it sounds now like we had all this, you know, foresight, but I think people like Steven helped me, and Mark, you know, both of them in particular, like I didn't know what I didn't know. And I was really joyfully naive about that.
Yeah.
And I also felt very supported by people who did know what they were doing. So I just was like, you know, I'm going to do a trust fall and just let it happen. And of course, we now have to work backwards about what we actually can do. Decentraland is very, it's become much more advanced, but it's still limited in what you can do. And so we're learning. But I think we have a very, very profound opportunity here to be at the forefront of technology and almost start to inform, you know, what the people want, you know, like, and guide and influence that. So I'm very, very, I love that question, because I don't think it's necessary that, at least I can't say for myself that it was so much vision, but it really kind of speaks to who we are as a people. And I love that we can express ourselves in that way.
Yeah. And Stephen, you from a technology perspective, I mean, you and I have been friends for quite a while as well. And, you know, I mean, again, goosebumps as I'm going to talk about it. I remember you taking me to visit the space that is now Creator Labs operation office, when it was, you know, just a shell, and you had this great vision of what it would be and could be. And 1 year later, it's probably not yet, maybe it's evolved, the thinking, but it's already very real, and you are doing very real things, and, you know, charting a course for people to come behind you. What was it that gave you that conviction, not just about crypto, not just about blockchain, but that the metaverse was going to be something special?
I mean, just off the bat, yeah, that's a thank you for all of that. But that, and I do remember, you know, we and things evolve, of course, but you know, where we are, I think, is, you know, exactly where we're supposed to be. We're doing some cool stuff. We have the opportunity to do really, really cool stuff, of course, with Anya and Wildflower and the rest of the Wildflower team. You know, accessibility, I think, is what really pushed it for me, just from a broad overview of what the metaverse could be. Accessibility, of course, we're talking about the open metaverse being, you know, a decentralized space, but an accessible one there where people can come and experience and build and earn and learn. And so, you know, for us, well, for me, kind of back then, like 2 years ago, when Decentraland was getting ready to launch and open, I just remember saying, he's like, okay, I want to see this. I don't know. I've been a gamer, but I don't know if I'm gonna, you know, stay hooked to it. We'll see. You know, these things come out, they're hot and heavy for like 3 months, and then not really. Right. And you know, Decentraland came out, and it, from almost the jump, it was like, okay, this is a cool space. And the next day, or the next couple days after the launch started, they had games and puzzles to win prizes and all these different things. And there was a small community of people in the game that ended up teaming up to beat some of these games. And it was completely random and anonymous. I didn't know who they were. Well, some of them I knew who they were, but most of them I didn't know who they were. And I realized, look at this, we can literally team up, we can play a game, we can win prizes. I mean, where else can this go? And then we saw development over the next, 2 years. But, bringing it back to the Caribbean and, being Wildflower, being the first Caribbean brand in the metaverse, and then us, producing that stuff and showing that, look, we can do these things. We have two amazing artists in Creator Labs, Kirk Garner, who's actually my co-founder at Creator Labs, and David Paris, who joined us recently and has instantly become invaluable. And so, Kirk and David put in an immense amount of time. And they're both from Trinidad. They're both right here in the studio, and we're building some really, really cool stuff. with Wildflower and beyond. Again, as I'm just going to say it over and over, but we're incredibly proud to be part of this whole thing, to be part of like that pioneer vision of what we can do from the Caribbean. So from a fashion standpoint, we're there. From a technological standpoint, we're there. So, come and join us, basically.
Nice. So let's get into Metaverse Fashion Week. What that process has been like. First, getting the call up and saying yes, we want you guys amongst the brands like Dolce and Gabbana, Paco Rabanne, Imitation of Christ. Like these are worldwide known names, globally recognized names, and you get a call that Wildflower is going to be a part of this first ever Metaverse Fashion Week. What does that feel like? What does that look like? Walk me through that.
I know every time I get to talk about this, I realize that it hasn't hit me yet, to be honest, the magnitude of it. And part of that is because when I compare it, for instance, to showing my in real life line at New York Fashion Week, I mean, that was easier and more tangible to experience what that felt like for obvious reasons, but also because New York Fashion Week is established, whereas this is a brand new event and we are basically part of history. So the magnitude of it is different. It's sort of like, okay, well, this must be amazing because like it's the first one. And here we are, like you said, like our shop in the 3DM space is literally next to DKNY. It's kind of like in real life, how could that ever happen? It is the best, most tangible, demonstration of what Web3 can do. We are this tiny, tiny little brand, that's only 2 years old, that literally has not even operated because of COVID. And here we are next for the right reasons too, because 3DM as a company, which is where that's done the build of the plaza that we're in the Metaverse Fashion Week in Decentraland, is run by these incredible guys who really believe in the Web3 philosophy. They believe in the democratization of opportunity. It's very apparent in how they've dealt with us. I can say wholeheartedly that we are living the actual idealism that everybody talks about. And I'm so heartened to say that. And so I think it goes beyond the normal feeling of excitement and gratitude, and it feels like a revolution, like Stephen said, these two young, incredibly talented artists are the ones who built these assets. When we talk about Wildflower, we also talk about the social impact aspect of it as a brand, that even before we were going in this direction, we were allocating proceeds from sales to our women's livelihood initiative, which is called Spool, where we train women here, both Venezuelan and Trinidadian descent, how to sew for the carnival and fashion industries. Now we're able to add a revenue stream to that, which of course has major impacts on that program. So across the board, we're talking about how does Web3 actually bring more opportunity to normally disenfranchised parts of the world, or underrepresented, as well as, kind of create now, like I said, new revenue streams and new opportunities that didn't exist, literally did not exist before. And to be, like you said, next to the brands like Tommy Hilfiger and the whole list, DKNY literally next to, it's an absolute dream come true. But it's really nice to do that in a new space and not be like trying to knock down doors that were never for us, So
yeah, I mean, maybe those doors were not closed off from you, but you are somebody, maybe not knocking it down, but you are someone stepping through a door that has never been stepped through bravely. And I mean, you're right, maybe it will take 10-15 years for us to look back on this moment and think about or really reflect on how big of a moment this really was, not just for Wildflower, not just for the Caribbean, but for the fashion industry as a whole. For clothing, for design, I mean, we are now seeing some of these brands, Louis Vuitton last year, now really starting to get it. And I think brands, more than traditional companies, I think brands kind of get it they kind of see the value of the space, they see the value of the network effects. So I'm very excited. I'm very excited about it. You raised something just now about, you know, how it compared to your first stint at New York Fashion Week. What has the process of development and prep for today been like compared? Like how has that been?
Well, Stephen could speak to that more than me, because what has been different is that we aren't as hands-on, of course. You know, Stephen and his team have been doing the bulk of that work, and we've had to relinquish a certain amount of what would normally be that more hands-on experience, and that's great. You know, honestly, that's a dream. And because we also, and not to get too technical, and Stephen could explain this more, but there are multiple types of files that we're making. It's not like when you make physical clothes and there's just like, you know, there's one dress and you can feel it and you can touch it and you can maneuver it. You know, this for me has forced a level of letting go. And I've enjoyed that. I mean, I think, but like I said earlier in the conversation, it has meant an uncharacteristic amount of not being in control, you know. So I think, but a lot of learning, tremendous amount of learning, and I'm so grateful. It's like being a child again, like everything else in this space, you know. So, but I think Stephen should speak to that part of the process.
I've been a part of a couple of fashion things back in the day, and so a couple of shows here and there, and last minute alterations and fixes and tweaks and edits. Let me tell you, it's absolutely no different in the world. We have tweaks, we have fixes, we have of course from Anya and their team, because we are representing and building their stuff in digitally, so they have to sign off on stuff, and then the central language platform has to sign off. Basically, we have to be within the parameters, and they may have one or two tweaks for us to do, which they did. So we so it's very similar in that respect. But of course, once you've built it, you now have that file for life. It can now be, you can change up the colors here and there, but you basically have that for life, and you can produce this digitally and have your perks and benefits along with it. So similar, but obviously very different.
So Stephen, what was it like knowing that you and your team were taking charge of the creation and the realization of Anya's and her team's creative vision for the brand, and you are responsible for executing that? It's a
massive responsibility. Anya trusts us. From the jump, she's like, okay, go ahead, let's work with this piece, and then we assumed the rest of it, and we ended up making it. But obviously, it's a massive responsibility. We're representing her. We have to make sure that the things we make, first of all, work and properly, which we've gone through, numerous testing stages over and over and over to make sure that all the wearables are up to par and how they're supposed to be. Very happy to report that they are, but it takes a lot to get there. And obviously, it's something that, kind of used to the spotlight and the pressures that come with it. And so, the spotlight isn't on us, it's on Anya. So we just have to make sure that, that the how everything is looking and tying together looks, as it should, and beyond. So, we're happy to be a part of it. It's but it has been definitely stressful. It's just part of any production, any event, especially something as historic as this and as new as this. Anya said, it feels like a kid again, because every single thing is new, which is kind of true. Everything we're doing now, it's very hard to kind of go on YouTube and say how to do this and how to do that, because we're inventing things. Kirk is inventing, ways to build wearables. I think everybody building wearables is kind of inventing things here and there because it's so new. David has been, working with some really cool, I don't even know what iPad pen drawings. We made fun of him for a week when he was doing the embroidery. One of
which he killed, by the way. He killed it. Yeah,
it looks awesome, and well, more than awesome. But so I mean, we're here to accept the pressure, because it is our job, and hope we represent well.
All right, so let's give everyone an opportunity to see some of the work. So this is the first one. I mean, this monokini is it's Trinidad Carnival. It's Trinidad Carnival meets, I don't know, Coachella meets like, you know, a runway. Talk to us. I mean, Stephen, what are you doing over there?
I had to.
That's so funny.
I realized very quickly I had the opportunity and I had to.
You had to. So, I mean, talk to us about some of these designs, Anya. You know, the inspiration. I mean, it's very much. I mean, for those who followed you and your style, it's always very feminine. It's always very flowing. It's always very organic. If I had to, you know, use a term.
Al, I'm very impressed. Your expertise spans many many topics, and
I'll tell you a story about that one day.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. You know, Wildflower, way before any of this opportunity, was inspired by my background designing for Carnival for 7 years, and then of course myself, you know, personally going to Burning Man in Nevada in 2017, and that experience just blew my mind. You know, for so long I've been trying to figure out how do I do what I love and scale it, because, you know, fashion for the Caribbean and fashion even in Carnival, like this, as much as you could serve the entire region of Caribbean people, it's still a cap. Whereas when I realized that, wait, what we make for Carnival is perfect for festivals, why are we not tapping it? Well, I mean, people were trying to, like, it's not to say I'm the only one, but certainly I just had this drive to create a brand that exemplifies the feeling of freedom that Carnival gives us, but do it in a way that's still wearable in everyday life. So if you go to our website, it says, you know, we're creating a little bit of festival magic to wear every day. That's really the vibe, you know, because there's a side of us that, especially, I mean, for what men and women, you know, like you don't want to wait till one time of the year to express yourself that way. So way before the opportunity to digitize this work, that was the intent, to sort of merge festival culture with our Caribbean carnival culture and create a brand that would really still maintain a bit of everyday life wearability. And so when we translated it, and I have to say that, you know, the fact that you could look at those digital assets and know exactly what the real clothes look like is all kudos to Creative Labs. Like, that is not an easy feat, you know. The transparency of that red dress you showed, the fringe on the kimono robe, the like you said, the sequins. That was the first piece we did that Stephen mentioned. I mean, as soon as people saw that, it was like, what is this? Like, yeah, how, you know?
I remember seeing that first piece for the first time, and, you know, I had an opportunity to like zoom in, and I'm like, how is this not fabric? Like, how is this material? Like, how do you go so detailed with this to the point that this looks like what it's supposed to look like? And kudos to you, Stephen, and your team.
Yeah, Kirk is a wizard. I've been calling him that since day one. He literally specializes in clothing renders, digital clothing renders. So I mean, and so much more. But he's just done some beautiful stuff in the clothing space. Of course, Wildflower at the top of the portfolio, and because of the intricacies and of course the textures that come with it. I mean, the sequin is not an easy thing to do. Right. You can have something that looks like sequin, but can you have something that reacts to light like sequin? That's really, you know, so there's an easy way and there's a hard way, to be honest. And the hard way is really not that difficult. It's just building things to make them look like they're supposed to look in real life. And Kirk absolutely killed it. And like I mentioned before, with David doing the embroidery, you know, it really is. It's like a patience thing, just as, you know, people would embroider in real life, except, you know, you do it once and you're done. So that's the benefit and the efficiencies of the digital space.
So we keep referencing the initial NFT, and now we're referencing the digital wearables for Decentraland. What different formats will this work be available in? I mean, we're talking Metaverse Fashion Week right now, and that is being hosted by Decentraland. Are there any plans to expand to any of the other worlds? Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're asking us on the day of the launch of Metaverse Fashion Week, so we are already like,
it's been crazy.
At least we're here. I mean, the big play really is becoming a more because Metaverse Fashion Week is a 3-day event, and then we are very lucky to have the space, the shop space for 3 weeks. So we get to continue to sell the clothes, well, the wearables, for the next 3 weeks, and really kind of make a case study for the commercial opportunity of this additional channel. So ideally, we would have, as Wildflower, I can only speak for Wildflower, like our intent is to have a more permanent commerce space in the metaverse world, and that might look like a series of partnerships. It may not be just like a clothing line. I mean, you might have a department store representation with boutique representation, and ideally, the more these spaces get built out, is the more of these malls and boutiques and retail spaces there will exist. But I think for us, we keep the mission of establishing opportunity for the women who are making the clothes and expanding on this education program. Our dream is to not too far in the future mirror the in real life training program to sew with digital tailoring and expanding, the ability for more people to be able to do what Creator Labs does at scale. And because of the remote access that people have to people who produce this work wherever in the world, it's really not that impossible to pull off. So anyway, I think just to get to the last point, it's just that how we do it is still not yet established. We can't really establish it because all these channels are still being developed as we speak, and the sort of multiple metaverses that are at our disposal. It will really just depend on our capacity to leverage this moment and choose wisely, strategically, of what direction we go in. But the end goal will always be to bring much more value to the Caribbean creatives, the Caribbean producers, and expand on how we can continue to bridge between this incredible world and real life.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds great. But for those people who are listening, who will listen to this, and they're thinking, okay, Decentraland Fashion Week, yes, I get it. I know what an NFT is. I know what a wearable is. I'm in Decentraland. I'm hearing that it's in Tridium's shop space. But how do I get to buy it? I want to go buy it now. Where can people access that information? Where are the links to get directly to the space? How do people make purchases?
That's such a great question. And I think, again, such a demonstration of how fast this is all going. We got the coordinates today for the shop, so we're going to post that in all the channels. Steven today was like, I think we should put the coordinates on all the social media. So,
and we will be posting it as well. So you could check, the Wildflower page. Obviously, Anya's going to be sending it out, and we'll be retweeting some of that and posting some stuff.
And for those of you who are rewatching this, I'm gonna put the link to the shop site in the description below as well.
Thank
so
you.
just send it to me.
Appreciate that.
And I wanted to just kind of add as well, the Wild Ting and Wildflower wearables will be available at the 3DM shop space for the next 3 weeks, and even after that, they will be available in the Decentraland marketplace. So they will be there. So and it is limited, a limited run from what I know, from what all the discussions with Anya. So it's going to be nice to collect and be able to hold literally Caribbean fashion history.
Exactly. And it's actually yours.
Yes.
People own it just like they would own their physical clothing, and it does not take up nearly as much closet space.
Infinite closet space in your wallet.
Infinite closet space.
So stack. I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, I've been trying to downsize my fashion lifestyle quite a bit, and that's always a challenge. Even as I've decided that I'm gonna start wearing mainly black, just because I don't want to have to deal with the decision fatigue, because I have so many things to think about on a daily basis. But because black tends to fade and stuff like that, you have to buy so regularly, or you have to stock so many so that they're not being worn out. I mean, this is one element that I love about this new fashion space. Like you could buy one thing that you really love and you have it infinitely forever, you know?
Yep. It's
I
true. It doesn't fade. I didn't even think about that.
Absolutely. I think within like a year's time, and beyond, obviously, but within a year's time, the average metaverse user or explorer, if you will, is going to have a larger digital wardrobe than a physical wardrobe.
100%.
It's inevitable. It's just
100%.
so it's plain and simple.
And it can't.
Go ahead, Anya. Sorry.
No, just gonna make the point about the sustainability for the environment that provides. You know that there's the fashion industry, the fast fashion industry. I can't remember the statistics, but it's a major contributor to the climate destruction. You know, and I think consumerism is not going anywhere. Our desire to dress ourselves over and over in different ways is not going. In fact, I think this is going to expand it. Our imagination is going to go crazy. When we did the Boson panel last year, and one of the founders of DressX was switching out her earrings while on the panel and they were NFTs. You know, like mind blowing, right? Like we spend so much time in this space. Like we could have changed our outfit 5 times in this, and we will. You know, and so I do think that I will definitely agree with Stephen. I'll make the prediction that there's going to be a major shift in how we expend our desire to dress ourselves into the metaverse and make real life clothes even more valuable, you know, even more special, because you don't have to do this sort of rapid turnover of clothes all the time in real life. So
and I think, you know, it is going to push the boundaries of how people represent themselves, because now, you know, something that I may not, or I may be looked at sideways to wear, except if I'm in New York, of course, you know, I would quickly throw it on in the metaverse, you know, and see how it looks, and, you know, go out in, you know, some kind of Rick James glossy stuff. And on that point, I'm gonna ask, when Wildflower men, Anya?
Well, I will re-challenge you and say that this is the beauty of this space, where fluidity of gender, fluidity of, you know, any sort of orientation, and Wildflower. And you could, I mean, honestly, you could go back in a history of Wildflower messaging, and we have always been about that sort of inclusivity. You know, I have a feeling that our first monokini was bought by a man. I can't 100% prove that, but I just know that was the case. And like I've always known that the brand appeals to a cross section of people. And to your point, you now have a space in which you can express that without the level of scrutiny that we do in real life. And for me, that is the ultimate dream come true. I've always felt that that's what fashion's for, and our societal norms can box us in. And I think that this is a new way, completely new way forward, that we can have a wide spectrum of identity. So it already exists is the answer to that question.
Well, it's Wildflower non-binary, right?
Correct.
It's
100,000%.
Everyone in between.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes.
And the wearables were submitted with that in mind as well.
They were.
That's part of the ordinary list, and it was submitted with that in mind. Okay.
So 100%. Can we speak to? I know you said it's a limited run. Do we have any idea of what that run looks like? How quickly do people have to activate themselves, or are we gonna just wait till it's done and be like, okay, guys, we're sold out. I apologize. For season 2 of the collection, how big is the collection? How many pieces? Let's get into the collection itself.
Sure. Well, you showed, I think, 3 looks.
Right.
There are 10 looks in the collection. They're digital twins of the in real life collection. We're making a play towards physical and digital sales. In this particular activation, we're only selling the digitals. The first 3 that have been released are very limited. And so therefore, those are the ones that you really should be prioritized. If you want to own the piece of history, the first 3 looks are the ones that you should really scoop up. After that, we're going to issue larger units, but still limited. And like I said, there are only 10 looks, so it's limited even from that standpoint. So I think that no, there's no question that, I honestly had not thought about it, but beyond the fact that it's, I think, really very, very unique pieces in Decentraland. Like if you go through the marketplace, you'll see they stand out. But on top of that, they are a piece of history. So I think even if you don't even want to wear them, it's worth having just for that reason alone.
Yeah. And talk to me about, have you contemplated, okay, the secondary market consideration around it? How is that going to be dealt with? I know you have Spool and these different initiatives that you're working with to make sure that your collection does not just impact yourself or the people who consume them as individuals. So I mean, maybe you could expand a little bit more on Spool and the journey with that, what drives you with that.
Sure. So we talk about the fact that Wildflower as a brand is about freedom of expression for those who wear the clothes, creative freedom for those who design the clothes, and economic freedom for those who make the clothes. So there's that through line of freedom, because I've, ever since having my foundation Together We and co-creating the Leave She Alone campaign to address gender-based violence, like I've always had it in my mind that what I really want to help with is the economic independence of women, because once you have that freedom, you have choice, and I think that's so at the heart of a lot of the vulnerability of women in most places in the world. So I merged my desire to address that with my expertise in fashion, and have been developing this program for a couple of years. It's an IDB Lab funded program. And so we are about to put it into full execution, where, like I said, we're teaching both women of Venezuelan descent and Trinidadian descent how to sew in real life. Thinking and feeling and believing that this is a skill set that can travel around the world. You can sew anywhere in the world. Stephen comes from a sort of fashion retail background as well, and production background, so he knows as well, like that is never going anywhere. So anyway, so yes, I think we're very, very mission driven. I'm very honored to be part of a consortium called Fijiko that is a global combination of global expertise in the metaverse and in real life retail space. And the title that was sort of allocated to me, I guess, based on the work that I've been doing between Spool and Wildflower, is the purpose-driven metaverse. And so I really do think that all of this work is driven by that intent to merge social impact and technology, and of course, in my case, creative industries. But I live and breathe it. I really do believe that Web3 has now presented a whole new opportunity for all the things we've all talked about forever, never, never, and now we get to be a case study for that to be an actual real thing. And it's blew my mind.
Okay. So you have pushed through the door. I'm not going to say kick it through, but you've pushed through. Tell me one or two local, regional, maybe even international designers that you've always, kind of looked at, you've always admired their work, who you would like to see come through the door next into the metaverse space, into the digital fashion space, into the phygital space, and who you would refer to Creator Labs, of course, to get their work.
I don't think I have to do much work in that regard. There's a designer. First of all, this is a hard question because the list is very long. But one of the first designers that comes to mind is Trinidadian, half, I think she's Nigerian. I hope I didn't get that wrong. Designer whose name is Melissa Simon Hartman. She has designed at the top of her game in London. She lives in London, I think, or in the UK. Again, similarly has merged sort of carnival theater with costume, and one of the projects she did was for Beyonce's film Black is King, and so she's doing really well. But there's just something about designers who can hybridize carnival and fashion that I find really fascinating, and I feel like, I don't have, she has it, and because I base this on the fact that all the things we're saying, even though a lot of what exists in the wearable space are black t-shirts and jeans. You know, that has obviously changed a lot over the last couple of months even. But I just think that people are going to want to be more sort of, you know, out there, you know,
Yeah.
like you can dress in t-shirts and jeans in real life. Like, why don't you just like go for it, you
Go
know?
crazy, go crazy.
And we do that so well, you know. In fact, a lot of times, like in my traditional fashion career, my clothes are too colorful. They're like you said, they're like organic. They're like they don't fit in the European and American version of high fashion. It's
Yeah.
always been a struggle for me, you know. Now it's like the opposite, you know. It's like amazing to like actually be creating something naturally that is well suited to this space. So similarly, I mean, I have tremendous respect and admiration for Solange Gouveia, who is, you know, the premier Trinidadian carnival designer, or one of them. I think her work would just shine in the metaverse. And then you know, completely on another side of the spectrum, I think Levi Marcus, who has an incredible brand in Trinidad that is primarily t-shirts and hoodies and, you know, more casual stuff. Like there's something about his brand that is not about the clothes and it's more about identity. And I would love to see that type of more scaled down, casual type of vibe in the metaverse. And what would that do for somebody in the metaverse just with a little Trinidad on their t-shirts? You know, like it's simple, but I do think that it's very scalable. And I think that it will open up a whole new genre for fashion designers like him.
I think that's a dope concept and dope idea. I mean, because like we travel the world and you're walking down a street in New York or in LA or in London and you hear someone speak and you're like, you're a Trini, right? And
Right.
it would be amazing to be like just moving around the metaverse and you spot someone with, you know, one of Levi's designs and you're like, how do you know about that? Are you a Trini? Conversation, you know?
Totally.
I got rules because of my Trinidad flag pin that I used to wear on my messenger bag strap. I got a rule in a music video up here, in a Mariah Carey music video actually, because on the way out of the room, I put my bag on and the casting director was like, "You're from Trinidad?" I'm like, "Yes, I am." I'm from Trinidad. I was like, "That's great."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
And you know, Al, you just brought up a point, because are we going to be able to speak? Can you speak? I don't even know this. So that people can hear your accent?
Yeah, so there's some, you know, where you can have your microphone on so that you can have voice chat. I know that it's sometimes, I know that it was in beta for some time and then they took it off, and I believe it might be on again. We'll see.
Right. Okay. Because that's such a huge part of our identity, you know. But like in lieu of that, I think moments like that, very subtle identification of who we are and where we're from in a space where everybody's from everywhere, will become really crucial, you know. And so I think, I mean, I love Levi too. And I think as a person, I'd love to see him shine. And I think that this space for me is an opportunity for something like that.
Yeah. Stephen, you have anybody in mind? I know you're not, you know, big on brands, but
I think that I'd like to see, I think Anya.
Who would you love to work with? Who would you love to work with? I'm gonna
you're really putting him on the spot.
That's a good one. I am, I'm a huge fan of simple, basic stuff. But I think that the metaverse and what we can create is limitless. So it's a lot more about creativity and imagination at that point. But there are a lot of amazing designers. I mean, who would I love to work with? He's already working with a major studio, Artifact Studios, which are a massive company. They've done so well. But somebody like Takashi Murakami, I think would be an amazing person to work with. And I think that if I had more time to think of that list, I would probably hit it out of the park. But yeah, I think that, I mean, any of these big brands, I think that at the same time, and also smaller brands, I think that there are a lot of Caribbean brands, both Trinidadian, Jamaican, and beyond, that are absolutely gorgeous, from the veterans to the new ones. And I mean, I think that we're going to be doing a lot of work with a lot of local designers in Trinidad and the Caribbean through Anya and through other relationships. So I mean, I just want to create some cool stuff. It doesn't really, the names aren't super important, but I would love to create some cool stuff and show the world that we can make these things in the Caribbean.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, one of the things, as we touch on the Metaverse Fashion Week, as we touch on some of these brands that are coming into the space, especially some of the luxury brands. I'm kind of waiting to see a luxury brand in a major way include NFT verification as part of their phygital strategy, where there is a digital verifier for all your physical pieces, especially like the luxury handbag space, or I love watches, the luxury watch space. I don't even understand why Rolex doesn't have it yet, why Patek Philippe doesn't have it yet, why Hermes doesn't have it yet, or Balenciaga, like, because there are I feel like luxury brands struggle so much with imitation, the imitation or the gray market. I would have thought that would have been something that would have, really caught on quickly, but I don't know, maybe I'm not as involved. Do you guys know of anybody doing stuff like that?
Yeah, so we actually working with a company that's doing physical and digital verification. So basically twinning of the items.
Right.
I think that the platforms that exist now, I think that they work. I think that at the same time, people poke holes in them, even though they all verify as they should, and you get your confirmation that your item is real. But of course, because of the fact that the physical item uses some sort of encrypted chip to really store the data and point you in the direction of the NFT to let you know that this physical is in fact authentic, because the digital says it's authentic, so it's authentic. It still has elements of even though tamper-proof steels and stuff have come into play. But at the end of the day, the solutions are here, especially for watch companies and stuff like that. Yeah. So if you know anybody at Rolex, have a solution.
I'm gonna put you on.
Several solutions. But yeah, we can digitally twin physical and digital items. But I think that we're still maybe a little bit out from it being a super efficient and streamlined concept.
Yeah, I think maybe the watch space might be one of those that it works better in, because the resale of luxury watches is such a big business of itself.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, if someone has a physical replica but they don't have the matching NFT, then you just discontinue that transaction with them. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's for me, I think it's low-hanging fruit, but you never know.
Yeah.
But Rolex is going to reach out to you after this conversation. You guys are going to make it happen.
Let's not joke about it.
Yeah, I love it.
Listen, I've watched Mr. Stephen Hadeed Jr. do some things in the last couple of years, and I would not put it by him for 1 second.
Exactly.
And I'm going to speak it into being for him and for you guys.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Anya, so I'm going to give you guys, it's crazy that we're already 53 minutes in, but I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to, just kind of any last words, any last comments, speak on the journey, shout out your teams, shout out your communities that I know all you guys are building, and, maybe just tell me what's next for you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, because again, like how we started, none of this would have been possible without the magnitude of generosity, of spirit of the entire crew. Because you touched on it. We started off with the NFTs. The NFTs alone were incredibly collaborative. We have this WhatsApp group that is now quite quiet, but for a good while there, it was like really intense. Everyone from Christian Saloom to Wyatt, of course, Stephen, Mark, everybody was weighing in on everything. How much should we price? Where should we put it? Like every single part of the strategy, and thinking about where we were then to where we are now. And Creator Labs and Wildflower have been deep in this digital fashion moment for Wildflower, and I think, like he's mentioned, it goes through to Kirk and David. Just people I've never met, you know what I'm saying? Like just the level of commitment. Our website was just pulled together by one of Z Lab's MVPs, who was up all night last night, like of his own accord, just to get this done. And it's just, my God. And then it stretches all the way to like the 3DM guys, like I said, part of the FijiCode opportunity beyond being on the consortium is now an actual collaboration with FijiCode and Wildflower to bring Wildflower to a much bigger audience beyond Metaverse Fashion Week. We still are yet to announce what that looks like, but either way, it's become a global, local, regional movement of all of this collaborative work to bring this to life and continue to bring it to life. I have to call out Sophia, who is my brand manager, who's an absolute incredible human being. Her capacity is beyond explanation, you know. It's and her drive, her commitment, her passion, it's incredible. So thank you, Sophia. I hope you're watching, but even if you're not, I would have said this anyway. I think at the end of the day, you know, we are driven by the true belief in Web3 to be an example of what this technology can do from a very human-centric place. I listened to a space with Krista Kim, who I am absolutely in adoration of, who said something like, we have to normalize the ideal, the absolute ideal of humanity, and immortalize it in the metaverse. We have an opportunity to do something truly transformational, you know, and I'm very excited to be in it, deep in it, and doing the work together with people like Stephen, with people like Mark Pereira. Like, it's an absolute dream come true.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anya. Stephen, go for it.
I guess my message is really simple. It's you know, that I've always been somebody who's like, if I can like, you know, dream it, I can probably get it done, and I could probably, you know, achieve it. And you know, the things that I'm seeing that people like Anya doing, and brands like what Anya doing, which she was saying is, you know, that's been hampered by the pandemic and never really, you know, got started in the way that she would have liked, which she's told us about from before, and to now have opportunities like this, it shows you that it's like the Web3 space allows for this sort of thing. It cuts out so many middlemen. I think we spoke about doors and busting them down, but or completely new doors. And I think that everybody should really look at this as massive opportunities, no matter what industry you're really in, whether it's fashion or coding or anything else, agriculture. There are solutions that I think Web3 and blockchain are going to be able to provide. And just, you know, if you can dream it, you can probably get it done. So I'm just a big fan of just keep building. I almost forgot my motto there for a second.
You're too busy building, that's why.
You're too busy.
Well, of course, we also have to make a plug. I'm so bad at this, but we will drop the coordinates. Please find yourself in the metaverse, in Decentraland. It's much easier than you think. You can do it without a wallet now. You can enter as a guest.
Yep.
Even if you're not there to buy, just, you know, when Al drops the coordinates and we'll put it on all of our social media, just go, just for the fun of it, you know. And of course, if you want to buy, please do. But yeah. And follow us, you know, where we are Wildflower on all of our social media. Wildflower.com is where you can see the full story. I think Creator Labs website was just going across the ticker. And
there's Wildflower.
Yes, there's Wildflower. So just stay, I guess, in tune. Of course, we have the Wild Tribe, which you can join. Send us a DM on Instagram, and we will add you. Yeah, just come along for the ride, like Stephen said.
Yeah,
guys, I want to thank you all for being with me today, for having this conversation. I want to just applaud you guys for really going beyond the point of ideation. You know, I think one of the major drawbacks for us in the Caribbean is that level of belief in ourselves. We have very talented people. We have extremely creative people. We think of every idea, but then we don't follow it through. We don't believe in ourselves to truly execute on the vision that we have. So I want to applaud you guys for not just having the idea, not just having the belief, but following it all the way through and being such an amazing example of what that can look like. Being able to take your journey onto the biggest stage in the world. Because let's face it, New York Fashion Week is open to New Yorkers and people who are able to fly in and people who are able to access the tickets and that kind of thing. It's very close. Same thing with Paris, same thing with London. Metaverse Fashion Week is for the world. It's for everyone. And it really speaks to what Web3 is about. And being a part of that, I think is just amazing. So I want to congratulate you guys. I want to thank you guys on behalf of the Caribbean for doing what you're doing, on behalf of fashion, on behalf of creativity. Keep going. And it was a pleasure having you guys on. And we will talk again very, very soon.
Thank you,
Guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
For everyone listening in the background, thank you for being with me. Thank you for sharing this conversation with me. Don't forget to touch back in to get access to the various links. I'm going to put them all in the description. Guys, as always, as I always say, adoption is inevitable. Alluminati out. Appreciate having you as always.